Little, the movie where a couple goes to an orphanage to adopt a child and ends up leaving with a talking mouse. I have so many questions about this movie that will never be answered. This movie starts with the Little family. Mum Little, Dad Little, and George Little. George comes running in, excited because today's the day George is going to be getting a new little brother. George has specified he wants a little brother. Really excited to play ball and wrestle with him. When he gets back in 6 hours from school, he's going to be crushed. The parents go to their meeting with the owner of the orphanage, Mrs. Keeper. The Littles start talking to all the children so that they can find the right one to adopt. After struggling to pick a kid, they sit down to discuss it. Whilst mid-discussion, they hear another voice join the conversation, but they can't find the source of the voice until they look down. There they find Stuart reading Little Woman. Who made this tiny book? Is there a market for really tiny written books? Because it's not a fake book, there's words in it. Who made the book? They choose to adopt Stuart. Even Mrs. Keeper is like, are you sure? We tend to discourage couples from adopting out of their species. Imagine you're in an orphanage and they choose a mouse over you. I'd cry myself to sleep that night. After getting him home, they do a tour of the house and show him all the family photos. As they are looking at the pictures, suddenly the family cat, Snowbell, jumps up onto the mantle and tries to eat Stuart. Why did they not warn Stuart about the apex predator that lives in their house? Then they start berating poor cat. Snowbell is confused. He thought he was doing his job. I remember when I was younger, I hated this cat because he was so mean. I get it now. Finally, George gets home, excited to meet his new brother. That excitement is quickly extinguished as soon as he sees the rodent his parents have brought home. Next is family dinner. It is very silent due to George's disappointment. Personally, I don't get why he's disappointed. He asks for a little brother and Stuart is as little as they come. Additionally, where did they get this tiny glass and this tiny straw? Even if they had them as kiss toys, I don't think they'd be usable. There wouldn't actually be a hole for the straw. It would be a solid piece of plastic. Next is bedtime and they tuck Stuart in. Just as Stuart is getting comfortable, Snowbell comes in. Snowbell is angry. He then threatens to eat Stuart and then leaves in a huff. Tomorrow comes around, making it today. They do this get ready sequence. Where did they get a fully functioning, hooked up to the water sink? They do not know Stuart existed until less than 24 hours ago. When did they do all this? Even if they had the means to do it, they didn't have the time. After getting ready, George accidentally throws clothes on Stuart and then throws him into the washing machine, almost killing him. Great first morning. They should really get him a bell. They have invited all the family over to meet the new kid. They warned none of them about Stuart. Unsurprisingly, all of the gifts they got him were not height appropriate. They told him he'd grow into the bike. I very much doubt that, but let's have hope, I guess. George and Stuart's dad and uncle give them a hand-me-down ball and then encourage them to go outside and play catch. Stuart is 3 inches tall. This will knock his head off of his shoulders. I mean, it's better than the bowling ball they gave him earlier. Later that night, Stuart goes to his parents' room and asks them about his bio family. They go back to the orphanage the next day and then put in a request to find his parents. Stuart, whilst at home, goes to hang out with Snowball. Snowbell leaves. After Snowbell storms out, his friend cat Monty comes to visit. Snowbell doesn't want him to find out he is letting a mouse live in his house, or all the other cats will laugh at him. Tom must be the laughingstock of his neighbourhood. He regularly gets beat up by a mouse. Monty then spots Stuart. This embarrasses Snowbell, so Snowbell tries to eat him again. Stuart goes to hide in George's room and finds George. Absolutely shocking that he'd find George in his own room. Whilst in the room, Stuart notices George has a model train set and asks if they can play it together. Stuart then pretends to be tied to the train tracks and get run over. Initially, they make this scene look like George has entered his villain era and is trying to kill his brother. Stuart and George continue to play for a while. Eventually, their parents ask George if he's seen Stuart. George tells him he's downstairs with him. The father's immediate reaction was, "What are you doing to him?" His own father does not even trust him. The boys are having fun, playing, getting along. This angers Snowbell to see Stuart and George getting along. So he goes to ask for some help from Smokey, the dangerous alley cat. 2 days later, at a boat competition, George is confronted by Anton. They apparently have beef. I was unaware. The world of model boat racing was so hostile. Stuart drops the control for the boat, breaks it. I don't know why they trusted the mouse to hold this controller in the first place. It's twice the size of him. I know you're meant to tell kids to dream big, but maybe you should tell him to dream small. Next thing you know, he's going to want to become a professional basketball player. Realism isn't bad. With the controller crushed, Stuart takes it upon himself to man the boat, or should I say mouse the boat. You'd think the washing machine incident would make him stay away from water. Anton then tries to make Stuart drown. After a grueling boat race, Stuart wins. As the littles are celebrating, they receive a knock at the door. Apparently Stuart's bio parents have rocked up. The mice say they are taking Stuart. These mice can talk too. Apparently it's just normal for mice to talk in this world. The mice parent starts to take him home, and then the human mum Little, is like, we could just fight the mice. We can take them. The mice all drive off in George's toy car. The next day, Mrs. Keeper comes to visit to tell them about Stuart's bio parents. She tells them that his real parents died in a mushroom soup accident. I tried so hard not to laugh at that. They got killed by a can of soup. The Littles then realise they have been tricked. Turns out the whole thing was organised by the alley cat that Snowbell had hired. Snowbell fears he will be kicked out, so the alley cats put a hit out on Stuart. These cats are ruthless. The Littles talk to the police, and the police officer tells them they should give up hope and that their son is probably dead already. How comforting. His fake parents then tell him the truth, and they tell him to flee because every cat in the city is looking for him. Stuart said that he would go home, but Mr. Fake Dad over here said it was too far and he wouldn't know his way back home. He said that his dad told him any little can find their way home to the little house. This made no sense. The dad did say this earlier in the movie. Are they magic? Is there a homing beacon embedded in him? Did I miss a scene? The entire family is now looking for Stuart. At one point they make a poster out of the family portrait they took earlier. Most people cannot tell mice apart, so I doubt it would be helpful. Stuart is driving home in his little toy car. I was not aware toy cars have such a long battery life. He's going to be driving across the entire city in that tiny car. Smokey and the alley cats track down Stuart, and after an epic car chase through the park and into the sewer, Stuart escapes and finally gets home. But all the humans have left the house and gone looking for Stuart. Snowbell convinces Stuart they were happy that he left and shows him how they cut him out of the family photo. He tells them that they set the pieces on fire. Stuart leaves the house, heartbroken. Even though Stuart has left, the alley cats are still out for blood, so they gather a group of cats, including Snowbell, and go out looking for him. Snowbell has a change of heart because all the Littles are so sad. They share a cute little moment. Smokey tries to drop him off a tree so that they can eat him. These cats are so mean. Snowbell then breaks the branch that they're all standing on, telling them that they will land on their feet. Comedic genius, if you ask me. Snowbell and Stuart go home. The Littles are reunited and I was crying. I was sobbing. This is the best movie I've ever seen. In the original story of Stuart Little, that he is a really small, he's a mouse-like boy, but he's not an actual mouse in the book. But in the movie, they have specified he is a mouse. Why are mice the only talking animals in this film? Snowbell is treated like a normal cat and Stuart's over here in family pictures. How does Stuart understand Snowbell? Are mice the only animals in this universe that can talk to humans? I have so many questions that will never be answered. I also have here in my notes that I wrote about this movie that Remy could beat him up. I don't know where that thought was going. Of course he could beat him up. Remy is a rat and Stuart is a mouse. Not much of a competition.